Good morning. My name is Shannon Sandifer. I'm the Executive Director at Henderson County Public Library, but also Chair of the KPLA Continuing Ed, who has had the utmost pleasure of working with Jay the last couple of years. If you have not had a chance to work with him, meet him, hear him, you're in for a real treat today. He's very high energy. I always make sure and tell everyone that, he's the son of a librarian and a former politician. So, where we have to extend him grace because
on one side of that, one side of that coin is dark.
But he's also former mascot for UK, so you see that energy and that excitement.
Can't you tell?
Yes, throughout the day, throughout the food, the morning, like that. So, Jay, thank you so much for all your work.
Yeah.
One thing that I know he will mention, but I want to reiterate because I forgot to yesterday, is that one of the things that we have contracted with Jay about is what we've lovingly called the backbone. So, as directors, there's so many times that, between fiscal court and just the politics of the town and things like that, we need that sane sounding board of like getting us out of the weeds and like let's look and examine the situation. We have a backbone service with Jay, so if you're ever needing that, get in touch with me. I'll get you in touch with Jay, and he will help you walk through that. So thank you.
Yeah.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. And he enters to rousing applause. And exactly. It's like the golf clap. Hey, I'm so excited to be with you all, and I love doing this where we do a tour across Kentucky, and today's the final day of that, but thank you guys for coming out. Some of you coming from another floor or from the buzzing metropolis of Hardin. Thank you all for coming wherever you came from. Hey, it's been said you should never look down on a day of small beginnings, and today may be the small beginning that changes everything for you. Today may be the day you see that you could learn the rules of leaving a lasting legacy. Today may be the day you see that you could go to another level, personally or professionally. Today may be the day that you see that you could truly have impact and change the world in a customized way, the way you want to. That's what we're going to do in our brief time together. And what I want you to understand is this is really a gift, because all of us are doers in this room. We get stuff done or else you wouldn't be in the room. And I just want you to take it as the gift to get off the treadmill for a minute, all that doing, and just have a chance to think about things. Why things are the way they are. Why do people act the way they do? What's up with all these political aliens that live in my community that I have to contend with? And we're just going to step out of that for a little bit. Here's what I want you to be able to do, though. Will you please have something you can write on, either this or this? And there's a whole bunch of pens and pieces of paper up here that if you want to use them. And just write down the things that matter to you as we go. But know that Shannon is going to send you all the notes when we're done, so you won't miss anything. But I do want you to write down the stuff that matters to you, because today's a day of thinking and considering that maybe you haven't had before. So again, I want to thank KPLA and you guys for allowing me to come out and spend some time with you and just, again, causing you to think. So here's my first question. I want to give you about a minute or so just to jot down on a piece of paper. What makes a great story? In your mind's eye, what are the elements, what are things that a story has to have to make it really good, to really, or great, or compelling, okay? So just a minute or so, and let me give you a little music so it's not so awkwardly quiet in here. Okay, nothing exhausting, but tell me, what are some things that a story has to have to be a good story?
An opening that catches your attention.
Ah, very good. Yeah, a very compelling opener that catches your attention, draws you into the story. What else? Risk. Yeah, there's got to be conflict and risk and something's at stake.
There's got to be danger. If you know the hero's going to make it to the end, it's boring.
Right, exactly. Very nice. What else? What else did you write down?
A villain.
Oh yeah, there's always got to be a villain. Yeah, there's got to be that conflict. Yeah, what else? Character growth. Yeah, something happens where the character evolves during the story. It doesn't end up where they started. A couple others, real quick. Yeah, a plot twist. Hey, I didn't see that coming. That was different. What else? One more.
A relatable character.
Yeah, totally can relate to these folks in this story. Every single one of those things has to be a part of a great story, a compelling story. And the story of your library has to have that as well. But here's what it really has to have. All of those things have to lead to this kind of secret ingredient, which is audience connection. Your audience has to connect to the story. There's a huge difference with an audience that is drawn in, following along, going with you, and an audience that is totally missing it, doesn't get it, can't understand what's happening, and is disconnected. And oftentimes, in the story of your library, especially to elected leaders, it can be disconnected. But there's a reason why that is, and I want you to understand this, because I want to take the pressure off of you today. There's this one huge obstacle for you telling a great, compelling story of your library, especially to elected leaders in your community. One obstacle, and that's just translation. You don't speak the same language they do, and they're not going to learn your language. Okay? So think about this for a second. Huge difference when you go see a movie that is a foreign film that does not have subtitles on it. Right? You can catch a lot of the gist, but you really don't understand the whole story unless it is translated into your language. Let me give you another example. I was at Madison County Public Library doing a creative session, a facilitation with the executive team, it was back in March, and Christina Cornelius and I were talking after it was over with, and I kind of bumped into this little display that she had, and I thought this said it perfectly. Let's say that this is your presentation, your annual report, and you're giving this to me, the Lexington City Council member that I used to be, right? And you're giving this to me, and I can see on it, oh my goodness, it's beautiful. It's got great color on it, and I see these pictures, and obviously. Well, wait a minute. Now that I look at this a little closer, it's in Spanish. The one I got is in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. And even though I can tell there's a lot of really cool stuff on here and you're doing some neat stuff, I don't understand it. This is what stands in your way right now. I want you to take the pressure off. So many of you walk into this room really frustrated. And there's real good reasons because there's some really nasty personality types in political office, okay? But a lot of where the rub comes is just in translation. If we can get you to translate things into their language, all of a sudden, much of the friction can go down. With the caveat, there's always going to be that crazy person. Okay? So just know there's going to be that crazy person that sometimes it doesn't apply and we have to find new tactics to deal with them. Okay? Here's the deal. Translation matters, and we're going to talk about translation a lot here. But also, you got to have a compelling story. We talked about that earlier. You got to have something that is compelling. There's a reason why I'm excited about this. There's a reason I'm drawn into the story, not only from the beginning, but all throughout. Okay? How can you make it stand out? How can you make it stand out? So at the start of this, as we start today, here's what I want you to make me do. Throughout today, I have to abide by this formula. C minus C equals C. And I would challenge you that you have to abide by this formula whenever you present, whenever you talk, whenever you conduct a meeting. C minus C equals C. What does that mean? Content minus context equals total confusion. Content minus context equals total confusion. If I don't know why this is important to me, I might just be confused by what you're talking about. If I don't know why you handed me this, and this is in Spanish, why did you give it to me in Spanish? If I don't understand the why behind it, I'm just confused. So I don't want you to be confused about today. The reason why we're doing this, the reason why KPLA is reinforcing this is because the volume of our culture right now is so loud, nobody's listening to anybody. We're all so brain-filled with stuff that we're just really not paying a lot of attention to each other, especially your community leaders and especially your local elected officials. There's no brain space, zero. Volume is very high. And so at the start of this, we've got to understand that we got to get into that space and we got to tell a compelling story. We have to have them realize the why behind the library in a way that they can hear it and understand it. So in our time together, here's what we're going to do. Super simple agenda. One, I'm going to give you a phrase that will guarantee your success in any communication, not just what brought you in here today, but with your family, in the communities you live. If you can remember this one phrase, you are going to be golden as far as communication. And everything I talk about is going to roll up to this one phrase. The second thing is we're going to talk about who is your audience, really? Like, how do you figure out who your audience is and hone in on them and their needs? Then we want to talk about what is your message that you're trying to bring that audience. Why are you bringing that message to them? And why should they care? And then the last piece is that how do you construct your story so that it works every time? Giving you a track to run on so that when you present, when you speak, you always connect to your audience. That's what we're going to do. Okay? So here we go. Anytime that I work with anyone, individually or collectively, my goal, as I see it, is to help you become people that know the times and know what to do. Think about that for a second. If people see you as knowing the times, it means you got your finger on the pulse of my world. And if you know what to do, well, that's kind of shorthand for you got solutions to my problems. And if you've got solutions to my problems and you know my world, I'll give you a seat at my table every time. But the opposite's true. If people see you as not having a clue about their world and you don't seem to have any solutions to their problems, you're irrelevant. You're irrelevant. Fair or unfair, gang, all of us are being judged whether we're relevant or not. Our organizations, your library, is being judged whether it's relevant or not based upon your audience, whoever they are, saying, yeah, they really know where I live, and yeah, they seem to have solutions to my problems. Here's the best news. When we're done, you're going to really understand the times and you're going to have things that you can go do, real solutions to walk out of here with. Okay? So here's that phrase for your success. So please write it down. Connection versus perfection. Connection versus perfection. See, perfection has to do with me. How I present myself, how awesome I am, my materials, my budget, my company, my organization, me. And I try to button it up and make it awesome so that you say, yay, I like that guy, right? That's a lot of work. Rather, what I should do and you should do is obsess on your audience every time. Meaning, who's my audience? What's important to them? How do I want them to feel? And really thinking about who they are and their needs, okay? Because in every good story has an audience connection. So let's start there. Let's just start talking about who the audiences are and how you can hit it with the message that you've got, the story you're telling. Now, in every exchange, the goal is to always bring value to the other person. That's what you should always try and do in your individual life as well as your professional life. Because if you're not bringing value, you're taking up space. If I'm not teaching you something new today that maybe you hadn't heard, or maybe hadn't heard that way, this is a waste of time, and that's a crime on me. So the same thing applies to you. Bring people value every chance you get in every exchange you have. I love this picture because it says it better than I can. My man here on the right, he's taking anything wet she's offering. He is thirsty. But notice she puts water ahead of milk. Isn't that interesting? Like, she had some options there. She could have put both of the items out and said, you choose. Which one would you like? She could have put them behind her back and said, I don't have anything for you. She could have put milk ahead of water and said, because I like milk better. I think it tastes better. But in this situation, she puts water ahead of milk. Why? because that's what he most values in that situation. She knows her audience well enough to know that water's more valuable than milk in that situation. The question becomes, do you know what your audience really needs from you? What's the story they need to hear you tell? Okay? So, the goal is to know the times, know what to do. Let's start with the times. They seem really confusing, but we got to set the context of that you're living in, and because it's so unique, and you've got to tell a story in a space that's really never existed before. I want you to think of it as a storm that is formed that has 3 headwinds in it. Each headwind standing alone is challenging enough, but they've combined to create this storm of chaos, and we're all in it. And you need to understand the environment you're trying to lead in right now, okay? The first headwind is the COVID pandemic. Nobody has ever tried to do what you do in a global pandemic. You realize that? Nobody alive today, I mean, unless you all have somebody from 1918 hiding in the closet somewhere, nobody alive today can go, here's how you do it. I did this back in 1993, follow me. Nobody's ever tried to do anything like you're trying to do in a pandemic, post-pandemic era. So we don't know the rules. Nobody does. We're all feeling our way. Now, let me give you 2 examples of what's happening now. If you want to think about March 2020, when the pandemic's declared, think of that like a earthquake out at sea. When an earthquake out at sea happens, it pushes a wall of water straight up. Think of that wall of water as the lockdowns, the first 2 years, right? All of that was, oh my goodness. Well, what's happened now is all of those waves that generated are coming ashore. We're seeing what got generated back there coming ashore. Let me give you 2 examples. One's funny, one's not, of waves. Let me give you the one that's not funny first. If you were under the age of 25 in 2020, you are a COVID kid, okay? Your brain doesn't fully form until you're 25. That's why you can't rent a car until you're 25. Don't know if you ever knew that or not, but that's why. If you are under the age of 25 in 2020, you have a 2-year gap, a glitch, a record skip. And developmentally, you will act sometimes younger than you are age-wise. So, if you are my daughter, prime example, she's 20 years old. She went through COVID. It hit her sophomore year, her junior year, and her senior year. So in that space. She just finished a sophomore year in college this year. Her first boyfriend she had was her freshman year in college. When they broke up, she acted like a junior in high school. Why? Because she was one. She'd never dated. She'd never gone to homecoming, prom, because all that was happening during that time that the glitch was going on. So here's the deal, gang. What we're finding is that Gen Z, as they're coming through the process, we as adults, we're moving on. Hey, let's go. I mean, that was the pandemic. That's in the rearview mirror. Not quite, gang, because these folks have this 2-year gap, and sometimes it shows up, and you go, why do they do that? Why are they acting that way? It's because of that. That's the not so fun one. Here's the one that's actually pretty funny. There's a dynamic out there called Zoom face. And we were all Zooming so much back then that what's happening right now is an explosion in the rise of Botox. Because everybody saw themselves and went, oh my gosh, oh, let's go, right? So we're just seeing the waves coming ashore. Lots of things are happening, gang, because of COVID. Now, here's the interesting thing. I'm a recovering politician, as Shannon said. I didn't serve during COVID, but what I found was that politicians, federally, state, and locally, all fell in love with one phrase, and they said it over and over and over. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. Right? Okay, and that's not an untrue statement by any means, but a better way for you to understand it is think of it as same storm, different boats. The way I went through it might be different than you. I might have gone through on a yacht and you went through on a life raft, or vice versa, okay? The point simply is, this was a global event. Everyone on the planet was affected by it, but the way they went through it is possibly different from one another. So depending upon, let's say, your age, that had something to do with it. Who you lived with, that had something to do with it. The place where you laid your head. Kentucky had different rules than California or New York or Florida or Texas. Where you laid your head had something to do with it. But specifically, the type of work you did had something to do with it. You as library professionals, you had a different ball game than a live speaker. If you got a paycheck in 2020, March to September, you went through it different than me because I didn't. And what you need to understand is that the elected officials in your community, whether they were elected during that time or they've come into office since, went through COVID differently than you, potentially. Here's a great question. I want you to just write this down because it's a connection question using COVID. So much of COVID divides us. I mean, we can go down all kinds of tracks where we can all get to fighting, right? But here's a question you can ask that will really use COVID to help connect you. And that is, tell me about the challenge you're most proud of coming out of COVID. What was a challenge that you overcame during COVID you're most proud of? We all overcame a lot of stuff, and we're kind of proud of, hey, I never thought we could do that. And that is a wonderful question to ask. Tell me, what's a huge challenge that you overcame that you're super proud of, or your organization overcame? That's something you can ask that will draw you together, not tear you apart, okay? So that's the COVID effect. The second headwind that you're contending with is that we have the shortest attention spans in history. On average, we have 8 seconds or less of attention span these days. These days it's 8 seconds. Back in 2000 it was 12 seconds. And whether it's hard science or it's an urban legend, it said that goldfish have 9 seconds of attention span. And the bottom line to it is that we have less attention spans than goldfish. Why does that matter to you in telling a story about the library? I don't know. That the library is pretty complex, and I don't think you can talk about all of it in 8 seconds. Here's what you need to understand. Short of a relationship, you're only going to get about 8 seconds. Tell me your name one more time. Pam. Let's say Pam and I grew up together. We were neighbors. We've been buddies ever since we were little, okay? I'm not going to give Pam 8 seconds of attention span and then tune her out. But if she doesn't bring value at some point, I might smile and nod, but I'll be tuning you out, right? So the bottom line to it is the deeper the relationship that you have, the more runway you're going to have to communicate. But at some point, you've got to bring value. If you have no relationship, you've got a very short runway to bring it, okay? So the relationship is what will expand or contract that. Most people don't understand this at all, and they just show up and throw up. They just start talking. They just, I'm going to tell you all about it, and they have no clue they've lost their audience completely, right? Or they send that epistle email that just goes on forever and ever and ever. So the window to communicate is getting tighter and tighter. That's the main point here for you all today. You have to tell a story in a way and communicate in a way that gets into that tight space. And in an 8-second world, here's the word I'd prefer you use from now on. Concise. Be concise in your communication. Now, what concise does not always mean is short. It doesn't always mean short. Here's a better definition. So out to the side of concise, write nothing unnecessary. Just take out the unnecessary stuff. Okay? This office on the left may be your meeting, your presentation, your pitch, your board meeting, your agenda, whatever. It may just have some stuff in it doesn't need, or it's not tidy. Tidy it up. And what I would challenge you to do is to become ruthless in a healthy way, ruthless about pulling things out you don't need to talk about. Okay? I mean, how dumb would it be if I took the stage right at the beginning and said, well, welcome to Benton, Kentucky. We're in the Marshall County Branch Library, and in Marshall County, there's also Hardin. And like, who cares, right? We don't need to talk about that. Wasted time. So the bottom line to it is take out the stuff that doesn't matter in your communication, okay? In an 8-second world, the goal is connection versus perfection. You don't have to be perfect. If the impression that I'm giving you up here is that it's all about Jay, and Jay is just imparting knowledge, and hopefully you'll catch some of this wisdom, blah, blah, blah. If it comes off like that, and this technology kind of gives out, you're out the door. I'm done with this guy. But if you feel like this is about you and this guy's really trying so hard to give you something of value and that craps out, you're probably going to give me a little more grace. So will other people with you. If people know it's about them, they're going to give you a lot more grace. Okay? So the third headwind, the Big Mac Daddy headwind, the one that's really causing the most challenge to you right now is you have more generations working side by side than ever before. Did you know that we now have 5 separate generations working side by side? That's never happened before. And we're all communicating very, very differently because different generations see things differently. I know that's an obvious statement, but let me give it to you this way. If I were to ask you to define the words simple technology, would someone older than you define that different? Sure. Someone younger? Oh yeah, definitely. But I just said simple technology. No, this is simple technology. Well, depending upon who you are, maybe you see that different than I thought I said it. Contact information. If after this is over with, you're saying, hey, Jay, can I get some contact information? I really want to follow up on something. Sure, what do you want? You want my LinkedIn profile, the thing off my phone? Do you want a business card? What do you mean by that? Different generations can define things very differently. Things like time management. Different generations define it differently. Success, absolutely. Leadership, yes. Mental health, think about how different generations can define that. Or flexible work environment, what does that even mean? Right? Community impact. You know, the library is having tremendous community impact. Is it? I don't know, depends on the generation possibly. Good government, you know what? Right here in our county, we're offering good government. Maybe, maybe not. A wide selection. You know, we have a wide selection here at the library. We were in Warren County last year doing a thing for their whole team, and I threw this up, and this guy goes, oh, let me tell you about this. Let me tell you about this. He said, we just kind of lowered our periodicals, the amount of periodicals we're offering, and we got blown up by a bunch of older people that said, you've taken away the selection. Like, you know, we got 10 million assets that we're managing here, and we take away Time Magazine, and they go nuts. Well, they define wide selection a certain way. Ease of access. You know, the library is offering tremendous ease of access through this app. Well, I'm so old, I don't really know how to use Libby. I don't know how to get into that thing. Appropriate material. There we go. Right? Generations define it differently. And if we want, to camp on our theme today, a compelling story. Different generations are going to look at how you tell your story and what it is maybe very different. If we want to start a generational riot, we can just throw these 2 words up and everybody goes to fighting because hard work is defined completely different. Okay? The point simply is that this is a really big deal. And much of your frustration that's happening right now, especially with elected leaders, is probably generational at some level. Okay? And why this is a big deal is because your audiences are changing. Okay? There's generational shifts happening. Different people are sitting in those seats now than maybe a few years ago. So we want to try and take this and make it super simple for you. Okay? So I wanted to create a tool a couple years ago that would allow you to connect to any generation, but you could remember it easily. Oftentimes, I would find that I'd go to a generational conference and I'd walk out more confused than when I walked in. Like, how does Gen X's favorite song help me, hire and motivate them? I can't keep all that straight. So what we've done is we're going to take a look at each generation and we're going to create one word. One word. If you can remember the one word, you can connect to them, okay? So let's look at each generation, give you one word. I'm going to give you one image that will help kind of solidify who they are in your head. And then I'm going to give you the connection point. Literally, here's what to say to them, okay? Here's how to frame what you say to them. So let's begin. Traditionals were born before 1946. Now, at the outset, let me just say, don't get hung up in the years too much because you'll go online tonight and be like, wait a minute, Jay, you were off by 3 years on boomers. This thing says the numbers are not the most important thing. The word is what matters. But in 2024, traditionals would be about 79 years and older. So I want you to picture someone in your life who's older than 79, okay? Their word is rules. They love and appreciate rules and structure. And why wouldn't they? I mean, think about it. The public works programs of FDR, military bureaucracy, World War II, post-World War II corporate bureaucracy. There's a lot of rules and structure built into these folks. And that's what they're seeking. The image I want to give you is an hourglass versus an Apple Watch. Simply put, you need to operate on their time, not your time. You have to slow down for them, okay? My gosh, they still write checks at the checkout line at Kroger. No pre-filled fields, not even the date, okay? The other reason I put this image up is because the hourglass represents the fact they know their time is running shorter. My dad is 88, he still works every day, great health, but he will tell you, I'm in the fourth quarter of life, probably in the 2-minute drill of the fourth quarter, right? They get it, they understand there's more runway behind them than in front of them. You've got to remember to slow down and operate on their time. When you work with them, slow down and cast everything in the word rules. Hey, what are the rules of staying married to the same person for multiple decades? What are the rules of running a successful campaign? What are the rules of coming back from failure? What are the rules of... If you put rules into the mix, it really, really makes them feel good and as if you truly know them. Okay? Boomers are next. Boomers are born roughly between 46 and 66, making them in 2024 about 59-ish to 78-ish. Boomers' word is legacy. Legacy. Why is it legacy? Did you realize that 10,000 baby boomers, 10,000 people in this age group are going to retire today, and 10,000 are going to retire tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day? Every day for the next 15 plus years, 10,000 members of this cohort are going to retire. Some are going to volunteer to retire, and some are going to be voluntold to retire. But the bottom line too is they're going to be doing something different than they've been doing, and they want their work and their lives to have mattered. Our job is to help them secure that legacy, not ding that legacy, okay? So the image I give you is the cornerstone of a building. When you work with these folks, what you're trying to do mentally is to always put their name into the cornerstone of a building and secure that legacy so they're remembered in a positive way. So as you present and pitch and move, you're talking about the library. When you're dealing with boomers in those leadership roles, it's about their legacy. How do you position your story to enhance or secure or improve their legacy or not ding it, okay? So when you talk to them, talk in the word legacy. Ask them, hey, what do you want your legacy to be when you're no longer in this role? What do you want your kids and your grandkids saying about you when you're no longer here? And then your job is to help navigate using the library, using what you're doing to help them accomplish that. And now all of a sudden there's connection. Next generation, Gen X, my generation, those of us born between 66 and 81. How many fall in the category in the room? By show of hands. Oh, brother and sister, good to see you. We are basically about 43 to 58-ish right now. We are the smallest generation. We're sandwiched between two very large generations of boomers and millennials. Just like in a regular family, we have a big brother and a little brother, and they fight all the time. And mom and dad don't even know they have a middle child named Gen X. Okay? We, however, are firmly entrenched in leadership. So you're working a lot with Gen X leaders right now because that's where we're living and where we are. Governor Beshear, Gen X, okay? The bottom line to it is that our word is level. Now, why would it be level? Well, we're at that stage in our life where we're trying to go to another level personally and professionally, but it was reinforced by all the video games we grew up playing. All those dang games we loved as a child. Every one of these games, gang, was constructed the same way. You put a quarter in the game, you got 3 lives, you rode the lives as long as you could, climbing as many levels as you could, to ultimately do what? What was the goal of those games, to my Gen X brother and sister? High score, you win. JAY's at the top. The goal of the game was to get as high on the high scoreboard as you could. Now, here comes the deep psychological moment, Gen X, that you were not ready for. It's just bonus material. Lay back on the couch and let me show you something that you probably didn't know about yourself. The technology of the day did not allow us to put our full names into these games. It only gave us 3 initials, okay? So I have no comprehension who OCK is or IUL or whatever. Gen X does not compete against people. We compete against a game. That is an extremely hard concept for boomers to understand, because boomers can draw a circle around somebody and say, I'm going to bury that guy or gal. You all, I won. Gen X doesn't generally think that way. I won 6 elections, you all, and I never ran against a person. I was trying to win the game, okay? So the point simply is this: if you're trying to move me to action, if I'm your county judge, I'm your magistrate, that is, you're trying to get me to move to action, you've got to figure out, what game am I putting my quarters in? What am I trying to go the next level in? Let me change the word game now to priority, and it'll all make sense. What are my priorities right now? And how can you help me climb to the next level in them? When you're working with Gen X, you have to find a way to ask this question to them. Hey Jay, what would you say your top 2 priorities are right now? Okay, so let me take you back, and I'm going to put on my old elected hat. I'm a city council member in Lexington, and if you had asked me that question as a library professional asking a city council member, this is what I would have said. Well, number 1 is my family. I want to spend as much time as I can with them, and I want to create as many memories with my family and my two children as possible. And in this governmental role, I am all about the health of this community. You know that I'm the health and wellness guy. I'm building all the trails here, so I'm all about our physical health, but I'm also about economic health and environmental health. Anything that has to do with that, I'm trying to do more of that. Okay, can you all back up just a hair and go, jackpot? You don't think that the library can help me create great memories with my kids and my family and give me more experiences with them? And you don't think that the library can be an amazing partner in the health of the community? Right? You can help me climb level in both of those games. Your job is to find out what my priorities are and to help me climb levels in those games. Does that make sense? Y'all aren't nearly as excited about this as I am. Okay, I'm going to get you there. We're going to get there. Millennials are next. Millennials, you guys were born between 81 and 2000. That puts you at about 24-ish to 42-ish. You are now the largest generation in the workplace. You're now the largest generation on the planet. You are the biggest out there, okay? Your word is impact. You want to have impact and you want it now. It is one of the coolest things about your generation. You have a DNA that you want to change the world. It's across your generation, and it is absolutely the coolest thing about you. So if I am trying to move and motivate you, if I'm trying to get you to join my team, I need to show you how coming and joining what I'm doing helps you change the world, to have impact and have it now, okay? So let's talk about why that is. Let's go apples to apples for a second. The games that millennials grew up playing were constructed really differently than the games I grew up playing. You see, none of these games have a thing to do with points, actually. Not even the games you think would, like football. All these games are constructed on the notion that you control the story. I can make Aaron Rodgers play for any team I want him to play for. I control Aaron Rodgers. Everything in millennials' worlds, the technology of their worlds, has allowed you all as millennials to control the story, to have impact on the story now. And that is the hope and the expectation. So the way that you connect to millennials is simply to ask, hey, how do you see change in the world and how can I help? With the caveat of they may not know the answer to that when you ask them, and when they do, they can come back to you. How do you see change in the world and how can I help? You all, boomers are retiring at the rate of 10,000 a day. Millennials are moving up into leadership roles. I was in West Liberty working with the city employees, and their mayors had just changed. This was about a year and a half ago, and it was typical. Boomer who had been there in that role forever, had just retired, didn't run again, stepped out. New mayor, millennial. This guy has been spending all of that last year especially doing legacy projects. All day long trying to keep his legacy at the forefront. Names on buildings, all those works. This guy was all about what can I do to change the world and change West Liberty and Morgan County. What can I do immediately that's going to have impact? It was so interesting when we did this that everybody in the room, including those two guys, goes, yep, that's me. And everybody around was going, yep, that's you. Okay? That's super important to understand because these folks are going to become more and more in leadership roles in our communities. They are ever increasing in that space. Gen Z's next. Gen Z born roughly between 2000 and 2015. There's a really squishy line between the bottom end of millennials, top end of Gen Z. That's why the word really matters because you're going to, whichever word you identify with is really where you are. But these guys are about 9-ish to 23-ish right now. They're about third grade up, elementary school, middle school, high school, college, a couple years outside of college. So the easiest way to kind of keep them straight at this moment is the bulk of them are in school at the moment, okay? Their word is customize. Everything in your all's world, Gen Z, can be customized to you, the individual, and that's your expectation. And I give you, the example is Riley's letter jacket. This is my daughter when she was a freshman in high school at Lafayette High School in Lexington. She had lettered in volleyball. My parents gave me a check to go get her a letter jacket. In Lexington, there's one place you buy letter jackets. They've been there 1,000 years. In 1984, I got my letter jacket from Lafayette High School at this exact same place. In 1984, if you were an athlete at Lafayette High School, you got a red stadium jacket with a blue L. If you were in the band, you got a blue stadium jacket with a red L. It's pretty much your options. This sucker, it's got about 2,000 decisions in it, right? This thing right here, about 20, 40 different design options in the catalog. That doesn't count the cuffs and the collar, right? Do you want a long coat, a short coat, a cloth coat, a leather coat, cloth sleeves, leather sleeves, colored sleeves? You want a hood? You want snaps that look like this? You want them on the other? I nearly lost my mind building this thing, you all, okay? But the point is, nobody on the planet has one like my daughter. Let me tell you about my son. When he was about 13, 14 years old, he was really into Chance the Rapper. Chance the Rapper was his guy. And if you remember back then, anybody that knows Chance the Rapper, Chance got really ticked that Wendy's had taken the hot nuggets off the menu, okay? There was a big brouhaha back then, Chance the Rapper. Well, Wendy's came to Chance the Rapper and said, hey, if you're that upset about it, if you can get 1 million people to sign a petition, we'll put the hot nuggets back on. Well, you all, my son, he answered the call. He was one of the 1 million. He got it put back on. And they came back on a Wednesday. And I can tell you that for a fact because he had them DoorDash to the house. Now, I want you to think about what I just said. Tuesday, they don't exist on the planet. My son speaks them into existence like creation, right? They exist now, but he doesn't have the time nor the inclination to go get them for himself. He must have someone fetch them for him and bring them to him like the mama bird bringing the worm to the nest and dropping it in his mouth. Everything in these guys' worlds allows them, you all, if you fall into this category, to customize your experience. And that's what they're looking for, and that's what they want. Okay? So the point is that you now have, the connection point, I should say, is these guys really want something specific. So when you say these words that are on the screen, can I help you shorten the runway to your success? It's like this key that unlocks a door to connect to them. Millennials, you guys want to change the world, and that sometimes it can be really theoretical, and I don't really know exactly how that looks. Gen Z is very different in the fact that they see something, they go, I want to learn how to do that, or I want to do that, and they go towards it, and they'll teach themselves off YouTube or other means. So when you say, can I help shorten the runway to your success, that causes them to listen in a big way, okay? So here's the deal. You've got a tool now in your hip pocket that's kind of like a Swiss Army knife, if you will. You got 5 words. You can use them to connect at any time. Now, as we start to talk about your audience is going to be made up of these folks. When you think about your county judge or that magistrate, what I want you to do is start to think about which one is it, and how can you start to use that word to make a compelling story, okay? In an 8-second world, this Swiss Army knife is something that you can use every single time. But I want to show you that I take my own medicine, okay? That I don't just teach this stuff, I actually use this stuff. So let me tell you what I did to you, and you didn't even know it. This was the first slide I had when I stepped on stage this morning, and I'm going to put up on the screen the words I said while this was up and we started today. And you just see if you pick up on anything I was doing. You know, it's been said you should never look down on a day of small beginnings. And today may be the small beginning that changes everything for you. Today may be the day that you see the rules of leaving a lasting legacy. Today may be the day you go to another level, personally or professionally. Today may be the day that you see that you could have impact and truly change the world in a customized way the way you want. That's what we're going to do in our time together. What? You mean to tell me that the guy that's out here teaching generational stuff and how to connect to audiences knows that his audience is going to be made up of lots of different generations. And in the first 8 seconds, who said the compelling opener? When I said that? Yeah, the compelling opener that draws someone in could be very subtle. It doesn't have to be very big. That's what you have to do as well. You've got to start to think about how you are communicating and what's the opener of your story. How are you going to pull that audience in at the beginning, okay? And we're going to take this and apply it to that track to run on here in a second when we learn how to actually create these stories where they can be replicated for success. But I just want to show you that you can do that too. It's about connection, not perfection. So let's shift gears. And let's go to this compelling story of the library. And how can these guys and gals see it as compelling? How can they understand it as compelling? How can we make it super simple? All right. We got to start at 30,000 feet, and we got to get in the mind of elected officials, okay? Because it's a different mind, it's an alien mind, and I know it frustrates the pants off of you and everyone else. But when you understand why they think the way they do, it'll save your sanity. It won't make you like them anymore, but it will save your sanity, okay? Now, what I need you to understand at the outset is, when we say elected officials, that is a big universe. We have to figure out which one we're actually talking about, because there's two types. There's the executive branch and the legislative branch. They think differently inside that, okay? So we're going to take them one at a time. But this is what I want you to know. If Shannon and I are buddies and we grew up together, or we're cousins, okay, and she's known me my whole life, and I get elected, I talk normal when we're at family functions. I talk the same language. We're all from the same planet. But when I am in the city hall or the county courthouse, if I'm inside the building or inside the space where I'm acting in my governmental function, I am an alien. I talk a completely different language, okay? A language that does not make sense to humans. Where in the world, in the real world, would a statement like this make sense? I wonder if we should take a vote to see if we can take a vote. Sounds stupid, doesn't it? That's said right here. Hey, can we take a vote to take a vote today? Is it, or should we not take a vote today? It's the craziest sounding stuff. But in here, that's what you have to say. There are certain times where you don't know if you can take a vote today, so we got to take a vote to see if we can take a vote. It sounds ridiculous, and it is on the outside. But over in here, this is how they talk. This is how they have to think. Even if they're normal, 90% of the time, they're not normal here. Okay? So let's break the offices down. Executive branch, your county judge and your mayors, those folks. Here's what's going on with them. They are responsible for everything. Everything in that county or that city. They are responsible for it. Rolls up to them. So what happens is they have to create a budget every year and say, here's what I think we can go execute. This is what I think we can do in our county, our city. And they throw that They throw that proposed budget over the fence to the legislative branch, the fiscal court, the commissioners, the council members, and they actually make the budget and say, no, this is what it's going to be. They throw that back over the fence to the judge or the mayor, and they have to execute, executive branch, they have to execute what they just threw over the fence, okay? Their job is to execute it. So that means they're responsible for everything. Public safety, police, fire, corrections, code enforcement, dog catcher in some situations. The bottom line to it is that public safety rolls up to that guy or gal that holds that position. Infrastructure, roads, sewers, everything that has to do with infrastructure rolls up to them. They got to make it work. They have to make it work for everyone. Parks and Rec. Well, Johnny can't get on the soccer field because it flooded last night, and we're just ticked because now we can't have this. What are you going to do about it? We got to get some sand on that field. We get the boys from Parks and Rec out there. Everything rolls up to them. They are responsible for everything. They represent everyone, every single person and entity in that community. They represent solely. So they get elected about every 4 years. They get elected every 4 years. They have to balance the needs and the wants of the entire community. So every individual is hitting them up for something, and every organization is hitting them up for something. They don't have enough money or enough people, so they have to try and figure out how to make this work. So it makes it really hard for these people to focus on any one thing at any one time, okay? Their brains are really full of a lot of stuff. And they usually, unless you're in Lexington or Louisville or somewhere, they usually have another job. Okay, they got the family feed store, they're a realtor, they're doing something else besides their government work, okay? That's the executive branch. Legislative branch, that's your fiscal court, your magistrates, your commissioners, your city council members. They're responsible for only two things. Here's what's interesting. The job by law, by charter, anyone in this position only is responsible to do two things. You are there to pass laws and to pass budgets. That is what you got elected to do by law. Now, you end up being a glorified customer service rep, right? Tell me your name. Sarah. Sarah calls me and she's like, Jay, my neighbor, her grass is hip high again. What are you going to do about it, right? I don't go out and mow it. I'm not responsible for the people, but I go put pressure on the judge or the mayor and say, Sarah's neighbor again, it's hip high. What are we going to do, right? Because I got juice, I'm on the inside. But that's not really my job, okay? What we do is we take the executive branch's proposed budget and we make it a real budget and we throw it over the fence and say, go execute it, go do it. I don't have to do it. I don't have to make it work. I can just say, hey, here's how much money we gave Parks and Rec this year. You make it go work, okay? I'm not responsible for the day-to-day of the city or the county. I don't have to make it work. That is not my job, okay? Usually, though, I have a couple of areas that have my heart, meaning there's a couple of spaces that I really care about. So I mentioned to you earlier, I was the health and wellness guy. When I was in there, I loved physical health, economic health, environmental health. Those kinds of things had my heart. The new senior center that we were building at the time, didn't really care. Okay, I understood it. Yeah, I had to vote for it, but I wasn't in it day to day. I didn't know what was going on because these things had my heart over here. This is where I spent my energies, okay? We represent a portion of the community generally. It depends on your setup, but most likely your magistrates, your commissioners, your council members, they are only representing a fragment, a portion of the city. So I represented a 12th of Lexington. I represented the 9th district, which was about 30,000 constituents. That's who could vote for me. Nobody else could vote for me to get me in office, just them. That's really key for you to understand, okay? Depending upon who you're talking to. So let's just keep using me as the example. You're trying to tell me, hey, I really need your help with this and so forth. You all are all 9th district constituents. Yes, absolutely. Tell me more. How can I help you? Okay, I'm going to work for these folks. You all are blowing me up because something over on this side of town is what is going on? Why can't you help fix it? It's not that I don't care, because I may care a lot and I can yield as much energy as I can. but you can't vote for me. These people are the people who vote for me, so I've got to take care of them. You got to always remember who can vote for them. Who is it that gets them into office or keeps them in office? Because that's very important. I know that's a harsh thing to say, but if you understand that, you can get your mind around it, okay? We always represent our friends, our family, our neighbors, and everybody knows where we live. It's the worst job in politics, okay? Because everybody's blowing me up at the grocery store. Did you know that this just happened? No, I had no idea. Everybody thinks you have like some ticker tape at the house, like, oh my gosh, look what's going on that side of town, right? Like, you have no idea, and people are like, I can't believe that this just happened We generally have shorter terms than the mayor or the county judge. Mine was every 2 years, so that meant I was campaigning every 2 years while I wanted to keep in office. So you need to know those election cycles of who you're talking to. Are they getting ready to run again? Are they out? Are they a lame duck? They're not running at all. Those are some of the things you've got to start to understand a little bit better. And these guys always have another job. When I first got on to city council, the way that it was set up was awful. You couldn't really have another job and do city council work, because they had committee meetings spread all throughout the week and stuff. And so we consolidated them into one day, because they always had the joke that the only way you could be on the city council is if you were one of the 3 R's, rich, retired, or a realtor. And that's generally who ends up being on city councils and so forth. But the point simply is a lot of things happening in my brain, okay? But I think differently than the executive branch. Here's what we both share, though. Both, regardless, so either one, executive or legislative branch, election's a popularity contest. That's it. That's all it is. It does not require a resume. It does not require past experience. That's where, some of us, I've gotten to know some of your all situations. People that hold these offices, they're not qualified a lot of times. They just won the popularity contest. Now, before you beat us up too bad about that, to win the popularity contest, I'm going to tell you, here's what you got to do. You got to go raise a bunch of money that you don't get to spend on yourself. You got to spend a year of your life knocking on doors and getting beat up by everybody in the community. Some people come into the door to slam the door in your face. Some coming with no pants on. There was a lot of that. But you knock on all these doors, you put yourself out there, and you put your name out there, your family out there for people to say wonderful things about you, and then you rely on people to go behind a curtain and possibly vote for you. It's not as fun a gig as you think it is, okay? It's a little bit harder than most people think. It's a temp job. It's 2 to 4 years. And then I got to reapply again. I got to go back out there and put myself back out to get elected again, okay? But you got to have 2 separate skill sets to be good at this. The first is getting the job. You've got to be able to campaign, which is simply, I'm telling all the people that can vote for me why they should vote for me. And I'm putting myself out there, I'm knocking on doors, I'm raising money and sending stuff out, so forth. But then there's doing the job. Doing the job is a different skill set, because I'm not campaigning to the masses. I'm in. You can't get me out until the next election. Now I got to work with this council or these magistrates or whoever and get stuff done sufficient enough for my constituents to say, yeah, he's doing a good job. I'll vote for him again. Okay? If not, he's out. So every year that they run, in the campaign year, in the election year, every politician is paranoid. Every single one of them. Everything is like hypersensitive. And so they get really, really skittish about doing new things or something that might alienate a constituency. They get a little conservative. When they win that first year, especially, that is a really good time to do good stuff because they're in and they got time, okay? I'm usually making 50% of the people mad 100% of the time. Every decision I make ticks off half the room. Now I'll make another decision. Okay, now it's this half. It's these guys and these guys. Now I'll make another one. Now it's you all and you all. And so I'm getting beat up often. But most people just have no clue how government works. And they don't want to. Here's what I want to tell you today. You don't need to know how it works. You just need to know me. One person on the inside that does. So if we're friends, tell me your name again. Beth. If Beth and I are friends, she doesn't need to know how government necessarily works. She can come and go, Jay, I'm trying to get this done. What do I need to do? I'm the one that knows how to do it and get it done. That relationship connection is what's so important. I want you to understand that today, okay? They think different than you do. Librarians think very different than politicians. You guys, especially when it comes to money, you guys think about money in a totally different way. You like to stockpile money so that one day you have money to pay for things that you're going to need. That's a novel concept, right? It's financial stewardship. But that's not how these folks think. These folks have no money today, okay? And they look over and they go, wait, you got $2 million sitting in an account for a building you're going to build one day? Are you kidding me? I want that. Now, by law, they can't come in and just go get it. So what are they doing now? They're board appointing, right? They're using the board appointments to try and infiltrate and play the long game over here. But here's where I want you to have some sensitivity, okay? Just let your guard down about halfway. You don't have to go all the way down. True story. When I was a council member, the Parks and Rec department in Fayette County had a $52 million deferred maintenance bill, meaning there was $52 million worth of stuff we needed to fix that had gotten in disrepair. We had no money for it. Lexington has a direct tax for garbage collection. It came into play a number of years prior to me getting in office, but the point simply is they had $62 million they couldn't spend. They bought trucks every year. They bought new stuff all the time. They still had $62 million. What do you think I'm thinking? How do I get it? How can I get it? By law, I can't go get it. But can I? And I start working ways to try and get it because I've got this fiscal problem over here. Let me go you one better. Lexington got put under a $600 million consent decree from the EPA because our sewer system was terrible. In the wealthiest, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Lexington is called Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase has the highest property values in Lexington. It was built around the turn of the century. But every one of those sewers pipes are really bad in that area. And you have a multi-million-dollar little cottage home in Chevy Chase. And every time we had a major rain event, raw sewage would blow up through your basement. Okay, so you got raw sewage blowing up through your basement. You're blowing me up to go fix it. Now the EPA has put this consent decree on me and so forth. And then the library comes in and says, we got to have our money to... That's where the translation, that's where the rub comes, okay? I just want you to understand that these folks just think different. They've got a whole different set of things they're working on. And what they look at sometimes is your money and thinking, they got money and I need it. When that's not true. Everybody's serving the community, but I just want you to understand where that's coming from, okay? All right. It did this yesterday. And I forgot. Hold on, I gotta go back out and go back in. I learned my lesson yesterday. Hold on, here we go. Technology's awesome when it works. Okay. So let me give you a way to connect to any audience, regardless of who they are, whether we're talking about elected officials or we're talking about people at home. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this and then we're gonna tie it to what your message is. And then we're gonna teach you how to tell a compelling story every time, okay? But this is the key thing. Before you have the meeting or you join the Zoom, before you make the call or hit send on your email or text, and especially before you tell your story, you got to ask 3 questions, okay? I challenge you to write down these 3 questions. Who, what, how? Who, what, how will save you every time. It will connect you every time. What do I mean by that? Who is my audience specifically in this situation, okay? You want to identify who it is I'm talking to, who it is I'm addressing. The second is what? What is important to them, that audience, that person or those people? What's important to them? And 3, how? How do I want them to feel when it's all said and done? Who, what, how? The bigger the meeting, the more time you need to spend answering these questions, okay? But literally, if you do this 60 seconds before you walk in the door, you're going to be much more connected. All right, let's break them down and sharpen the pencil a little bit here. Who's my audience? You want to ask questions of yourself like, do I know their names? So like today, as I was preparing for this, I didn't know if I know anybody in here by name necessarily. Some of you I have met, some of you we've talked on the phone and stuff, but I didn't know that. Do I know their titles? Yes, absolutely I do. And I knew what titles sit in this room. when you start to do this, ask, okay, I'm getting ready to go in to meet with these folks. Do I know any of their names? Oh gosh, yeah, that's my cousin. That's my neighbor. Or I don't know any of them, but I know they're all the fiscal court, or they're all the Chamber of Commerce folks. Do I know why they're in this meeting? This is such a dumb question on the surface, but it's really, really important to ask. A lot of times people who would come and present to us, much like you all do when you have to do your tax rate for us, would get so worked up about, oh my gosh, I'm going before the city council. Do you know why I'm sitting in the chair that day when you come to present? Because by law, I'm supposed to sit in that chair at 1 o'clock. That's my job. It's not because the library's coming. The library's coming. I got to be here at 1. I got to sit down here and be ready for this. No, it's because I have to be there. You can take some of the pressure off yourself if you ask this question. All right. This week, I've had a really interesting, great week. I did the first one of these in Richmond on Monday. Tuesday, I did an all-day session with Valvoline and their executive team. Wednesday was in Bowling Green doing this. Thursday, I'm in Marshall County doing this. I have to think about why each of you are in the room. Every one of you all came because you wanted more information on this topic. Not necessarily because of Jay, but because of the topic. I need to understand that. The folks at Valvoline came because their boss told them, you're going to be here all day. I need to know that. Ask yourself, why are they in the meeting? Why are we sitting here? Haven't met any of them before, and what generations are they? Okay, just some questions you need to ask beforehand. What's important to them? This is the key question, and we're going to drill into this in just a second, but what's important to them? What does this audience value? What does your local government value? What is it that they want? Well, it's generally going to be community impact, economics, tax dollars, constituent services. Those are the things that matter to them. Their ego, their own ego is important to them and what they value. That's okay. You just need to know it, all right? What do they already know that I don't need to cover? That's like me saying, hey, welcome to Marshall County in Benton, Kentucky. Like, you already know that. Why would I waste my time on that? You can take some stuff out that probably they already know. What do they need most from me in this meeting particularly? So let's say that you're coming to me and you're going to talk about your tax rate and how you're going to spend it. And I've got lots of questions. Well, maybe I'm looking for technical information on that. If you don't have all that info, just bring somebody that knows it with you, if you know that's what I'm going to ask for. Maybe it's timeliness. I just need this in a timely fashion. If you're trying to get something into the Lexington City budget, you got to bring it about March, April-ish. If you bring it later, like in May or June, it's too late. And I'd be really frustrated with you because you didn't understand timeliness. Maybe it's conciseness, definitely enthusiasm. Let me just say this. I can't be more excited about your thing than you are. If you come in at an 8 and expect me to be a 9 or a 10 in enthusiasm, you've been drinking. Y'all been drinking. I can't be more excited about your thing than you are. So, are you excited? If you want me to be an 8, you better come in at a 9 or a 10. I would tell you to always bring your enthusiasm because people want to see that every time. Maybe it's just shoot me straight. Be truthful with me. Maybe this is just the best value. By doing this, Judge, this is the best value for our community. The third question is the question very few people ask, but it's really important. I always ask, have you ever tried to push a chain in a straight line or a string in a straight line? You can't do it. It just kind of does this. But you can pull a string or a chain every single time in a straight line. This is pulling the string. This is starting with the end in mind. And it's simply, what is the feeling that you want them to have when you walk out that door? What is the feeling that you want them to have when you leave? You know, I want you guys to be encouraged and equipped. That's my goal for today, that you're encouraged, that this isn't as monumental as I thought, and I actually have some tools that can help me tell a better story more consistently. But maybe that you want someone after they've left you to be challenged or scared. I used this example yesterday. If Shannon's my boss, and I love my boss, but you know what? I'm just sucking wind. I'm really not doing that well. And she knows it. And this is a performance review question. I mean, a interview. And she's telling me, look, Jay, you got 6 months to turn this ship or else you're gone. Being scared is a good emotion to walk out of there with. That's okay for me. Maybe it's to be inspired or thoughtful, cautious or emboldened. curious or humbled, honored, appreciated. But really, if I could teach you anything, it would be that you want to leave people saying, gosh, man, she just knows me. That guy, he understands me better than anybody else. He just really knows me and what I'm trying to accomplish or I'm trying to do. Okay? Literally, gang, if you take 60 seconds before your meetings and run a quick who, what, how, you will connect every time so much better. But the bigger the meeting, the more time you need to spend. I mean, if you're going in asking for $10 million, don't do 60 seconds of who, what, how, okay? Definitely want to spend some time. So at the end, not right now, but when we finish, one of the challenges I'm going to have you take is when you get back home to take out your calendar and to look at the next 6 appointments that you've got. Who are the next 6 people that you're going to meet with, including your family, and do a quick who, what, how on them. And it can be a group of folks or it can be individual, but just what are those next 6 meetings? Run a quick who, what, how on them so that you got a little muscle memory from today. Okay? All right. If you got to bring value to other people, because if you're not, you're taking up space. Always remember my gal, she may love milk a lot more, but she knows this guy's going to value water a lot more. This is the environment you are trying to lead in. It is chaotic. Every one of those headwinds is challenging by themselves. Taken in concert, they are really, really challenging. Okay? But you got to understand that so that you know how to build a better story, because you got to know the environment you're trying to tell it in. So let's shift gears and let's talk about your message and why it would matter to elected officials. Why would people care in elected office about your library? And so let's do this. I want to take a few minutes and let me jot down from you all what are the most important categories and or numbers that you feel like you want to share with elected officials. What are the key metrics of a library that you definitely want people to know about? What are some of those categories? Let me write those for you. Audience participation, part of the show. What matters to you all to talk about? Yeah, patrons and traffic. And would you say that we probably need to divide that into live versus internet? I was just going to say, so those are two different ways to look at patrons. What else is important?
Services and library.
Okay, services. And I've heard this over the last week. Services kind of are internal and external. Would you agree that there are services you do internally and then there are services externally that are all very important? What else?
Return on investment.
Yeah. And how do you define that? Because we can define things a lot differently, but when you say return on investment, to me, what are you trying to tell me?
That for every taxpayer dollar that comes into the library, this is the amount of value we put back into the community.
Okay, taxpayer dollar and then value to community. Okay, I didn't want to assume. What else? What's another great category that you all definitely share in your annual reports or you usually have numbers for?
I think it's important to know or to tell them that you are working with other agencies in the community.
So partnerships.
Outreach, and well, it's not outreach, but a working relationship
Okay.
with other agencies.
Partnerships.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I mean, child development programs, we're part of West Kentucky Childhood.
Yeah. Childhood something or another. Yeah.
And we work with, our county jail, we share books to keep their library filled.
Okay. Yes. Definitely so. All those partnerships that you all have, you definitely want to share that with folks. What else is something you share all the time? Circulation. And Shannon, define what circulation means.
The items that are checked out, whether it's physical or digital.
Okay. Now, here's a whole group of librarians, and you said, this joker just asked, what is circulation? Yeah, he did. Because I don't know. I don't know how you define that. So you got to define some of these terms that you all use and know right off the bat. I don't know exactly what that means. And the reason why I camped there is because when we were in Richmond on Monday, circulation was the very first thing one said. And I said, oh, define that for me. And she defined it. And somebody else in the other room goes, in the back of the room goes, no, that's not circulation. It's this. I'm like, oh my gosh, look, even internally, it has a little nuance. So the point simply is all of these are neat. They need some defining for your audience. But what else? What's another thing that's always going to show up in your annual reports? It's a metric you love to share. It's important that they know.
Program attendance.
Okay, programs and attendance. What programs you've got, and then how well attended and who. Is it ANC or ENC? Attendance? ENC. I knew it. I got it. Anything else that is an important category, or you always share this, you definitely want to, it's a brag category, something that...
Call services, whenever they're in front here, but the Bridge Club or the Homemakers use the facility or something like that.
Okay, so what would we call that? What would you all call that? You all call it. Meeting room stats and so forth. Okay, so meeting rooms or meeting spaces maybe. And stats. Okay.
Without all of that, you have to have hours of operation,
Yep.
which could be pretty important, but the community knows when you're open.
Yep. Yeah, something very basic. Here's how much availability we have. Anything else that we're missing?
They do, like Halloween, they're set up a table and pass out candy when they do the downtown Halloween treats. Community involvement, I guess is what
Community involvement, community outreach. We'll put both those. So, okay. All right. So let's do this. Now, God, it's not too strong. Tell me, let's go one at a time real quick. Tell me why I should care. Let's translate it into my language, okay? So what do I care about? I care about things like my constituents. I care about my name. I care about getting reelected. I care about tax money. I care about economic impact, community impact. Those are the things that I, as an elected official, care about. So let's just do a quick translation, fast. Let's go one at a time. Patrons and traffic. How can you translate that to my language? Why should I care about how many folks come through there, live and internet-wise?
Hopefully they have a good experience and they love it.
Okay. Okay.
I think it also goes back to something that Justin said, that the return on investment, you're letting them know that people are receiving value for their tax dollars.
Okay. Good. Okay. What else? Why should I care about internet?
Because if it's not working, it's a problem.
Right?
If you don't have it, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Well, it can encourage people to move into a community.
Ah. Yeah. Very good. Yeah, yeah. Encourage people to move out or in, either one, right? Yeah. Okay, what about services and things like that? Why should I care?
Well, if you've got a family, they're gonna use them,
Ah, okay.
hopefully.
Yep.
Well, if you're in a small town, there are a lot of things to do. So
Yeah.
that becomes a social.
Yep. Social outlet. Okay.
You're also saving people money. Instead of going to something that
Ah.
costs something, they can utilize a free service or program at the library.
Very nice.
You always have those people that want to challenge you and say, no, it's not free. I'm paying for it.
Right, right.
You gotta be careful about that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Come to one program, you paid for it.
Right, yeah, exactly. You've already paid for this. It's prepaid, right? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's kind of keep going here. What are some of the things as it relates to partnerships and agencies? Why should I care about that?
Community support.
Hmm.
You don't have to go outside your county to find a service if you want.
Community support. You can stay in county.
And it enables the partners to do more.
Ah, that's it. There you go. Partners can do more.
You're not duplicating services.
Yeah. Cut down on duplication. Okay. What about circulation? Like, why should I care about that? What difference does that make to me?
I think it's just, I know they don't like numbers, but it's just a good underlying number of usage and a lot of.
More educated populace.
Yep. It's a good,
I think it'd be a good indicator. If nobody's checking out any books, they're only checking out 2,000 and you've got this big budget.
yeah. It's an index, it's an indicator. Yeah. It tells you what's kind of going on. Let's talk about these programs. So what? You're running some programs, Justin. Tell me about them. Why should I care?
Because they save people money.
Uh,
Instead of $80 an hour for daycare, they can come to a story time for an hour. They've just saved themselves $80. And they get to learn about all the other cool stuff that the library offers.
Okay. And I'm going to put daycare as an example in here.
I think some use the library as a supplement for schooling, homeschool families. In the summer, the reading program to help with kids that don't necessarily read very well.
Yep.
So that helps with the summer slide.
Yeah.
But it overall encourages their literacy education of the community.
Ah. Yep. Okay. Meeting spaces. Why do you need those meeting spaces? What?
Lots of communities don't have any of those.
I love it.
We need.
Yep. It saves dollars on space. Be paying for it.
We have lawyers with their clients there for depositions.
Yeah. It's professional space. It's safe space. Those types of things. Yeah.
A lot of people have down for the doctor's appointment, or they give them the COVID vaccine.
Really? Okay.
Still maybe.
They had them to do the video chats.
Yes, they would have, and they wouldn't have had the resources without a library. I guess they might shut down to one thing.
Okay. And then community outreach. Why should I care? We've kind of talked about it a little bit, but just tie a bow on this one for me. Why should I care that you do community outreach and you got this involvement?
You're seeing us work with other groups, and you are reaching more people, you're just getting more support for the library, for the services, which then hopefully those people who are doing the budget will say, oh, man, they're taking care of this, we don't have to find somebody else to do the job.
Yep. And there's this great phrase, people love leader of leaders. People love leaders of leaders, meaning if I'm going to give grant money to somewhere, I want to give it to the leader of leaders. If I give it to the library and they've got all these different partnerships and they can make all that happen instead of me trying to spread it, even better. Okay, y'all done an awesome job. This is the stuff that matters to you. You started to flip it and say, well, why should it matter to me? Okay? Now, here's what I want to do. I'm going to give you just a few minutes. And what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at this and do me a favor. As many of these as you can in 4 minutes or so, I'm just going to give you a little bit of time. I want you to put a face to as many of these as possible. Specifically, what I'm asking for is, can you tell me a story of a person? Hey, this is Joe. Joe got his GED at the library because we offered meeting space for that, or GED training or whatever. Hey, this is Sally. She's the mother of twins and she had whatever. Marshall County, I have told Tammy's story from this time last year 1,000 times about all your little kiddo reading and mothers bringing them literally from the hospital in their gowns for reading time. Like, that is the coolest thing ever. Y'all got something going on when it comes to these kid reading things. But put a face to that, okay? Because when you can make a stat or a category a person, I care. What you've got to have the skill in doing, gang, after today, and the bat phone is here so we can talk through this in specific situations. We don't have to figure it all out today. But what I want to do today is take what's important to you, flip it into my language somewhat, so that okay, that's why I should care. But then you got to go one step further and you have to put a face to it. You got to tell me a story, a compelling story about someone that used this in this way. Does that make sense what I'm asking you to do? So just take about 4 minutes and put as many faces to as many of those as you can. Let me give you a little travel music. Tell me your stories. Give me one. Tell me about somebody at your library.
There's a girl, I don't know who she is. She walks to the library every day. It doesn't matter if it's raining or whatever, she has her umbrella with her. And she is not Down syndrome, but there's some.
Okay. Yeah.
And she knows how to use the computers at the library.
Mm-hmm.
She interacts with the ladies up front and Robert. She has made, I was there, I've seen her ask for copies, ask for something to be faxed. She's come to some of the bingo programs and arts and crafts and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I would say, fills a void in her life that's part of her daily schedule.
I love it.
She's brought a few people with her before when she's played bingo.
Yeah.
And different things.
I love it. Yeah. So why should I care? Here are some marginalized people in our community that without the library would not, be able to enjoy our community. People enjoy them. Oh, by the way, her parents, her grandparents, they're all community members. They all vote, so forth. The library matters to them. It's great. Give me another one. What's one?
I had a lady that told me once, her teenage daughter was coming in and using the computer just about every day, and she said she was thankful that we had that service because she knew where she was, she knew she was safe, she didn't have to worry about her.
Yeah. That's excellent. Justin, I think I cut you off.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We provide meeting room space to Live Well, who does HIV testing.
Mm-hmm.
In the past year, they were able to catch 5 people who have HIV. And
Wow.
they were able to get them, started on recovery and making sure they're living their best life.
Wow, that's wonderful. I mean, that's a great story, but from a totally different angle. That's a plot twist, right? Right? That's good. All right, Shannon, I'm going to put you on the spot. So Shannon helped actually create this last year because we were talking on the bat phone one day, and she said, Justin, I was telling about you last year, coming up to me and saying, here's my annual report. And remember how we personalized it last year and we started putting, you brought yours again. Yeah, of course you did. And so Shannon, she sent it to me, we went through page by page, and you had a couple of stats that were awesome to you, and I knew they were awesome, but I don't know, and I didn't care. So give me one of your stats. What you got? I know you brought yours together today. Uh-huh. So give me a brag stat for you.
255,000 items circulated.
Okay. So here's what just went through my head. Okay, that sounds big, but that might be down from what she did last year. That sounds big, but in relation to what? How many people live in our community? Is that everybody? My brain is spinning in these ways of, I don't know the context, C minus equals C. So I've got content, but I don't have the context, so it equals confusion. So give me context to that number now. Tell me why that's a great number.
Well, that is giving resources, information into the hands of our residents. It's improving their life because they are becoming more educated. Educated workforce means we're going to bring in greater employers.
Yeah. Yeah. People that give you jobs. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Now, drill it down one step. Can you think of someone that puts a face to that number where you could say, like Joanne, who, okay, that's the next. So as you say it, you're like, hey, I want to tell you we got 250,000, what was it?
255,188.
Oh, and what was the category of circulation? Uh-huh. So, Judge, you don't have a clue what that means. I could have said a gajillion. What that means is that means this. This many people in our community have done this. And that's like Joanne, who did this and had this amazing experience and is now working and is on the tax rolls. You see, that's important to you, and it is important. Translate it to my language, and then just put a face to it. All right, Justin, give me one of yours. What'd you bring me today?
Let's see. We ordered the newest, latest video games at the library.
Okay.
Instead of a parent having to shell out $60, which is a lot
Yeah.
for a game, a child can come and check it out at our library 3 weeks for free.
Okay, so The trap in that number, in that amazing story, he's super excited about it and it's really cool. But the trap could be, I could be one of these that go, yeah, you know what? They're spending too much time on those dang video games and they're not studying and blah, blah, blah. So you've got to be ready to say, like Jordan, who's now playing this game and is getting a scholarship to go play esports at the University of Kentucky, right? Like so-and-so that's taking this and learning game design, where they're going to go study that and do this, that, and the other. Show me it's not like some deadbeat thing that, you know, like back in the day, it'd be like, there's a pool hall associated with the library, right? So you see what I'm saying? You don't want to step on a landmine because you're so excited about this and it is cool, yeah, it saves them money, but I don't really care. Oh, I do care. That means that you are pipelining them towards esports. Esports is one of the biggest growing majors and businesses and jobs out there. I know it's crazy. It's insane. But here's what's, let me tell you about esports for a second, because I didn't understand it at all. If I'm recruited to the University of Kentucky to play basketball, I am not also going to swim for Kentucky, right? I mean, I've been recruited because I play this sport really well. We all understand that. In esports, it's the same way. If I'm good at Call of Duty, I will be recruited to go be on a team and play Call of Duty for a college. Not Call of Duty and this and this and not all these games, okay? So what's interesting is that University of Kentucky was only the second college in America behind the University of Utah to have an esports team. It's not sanctioned under the NCAA yet, but it is actually, it's a South Korean company, a video design company that paid UK all this money. They are the sponsor of the team, and they have varsity for these sports, these games, and JV and so forth. So there's scholarship money to come and play competitively for this, okay? But what these guys did that's brilliant is that they went to UK and said, video gaming companies need engineers, they need artists, they need musicians, they need accountants. So they've woven it into all the schools across UK. So there's a video game thread, and you can say, look, I've got an accounting degree from UK with a specialty in video gaming accounting, or video game minor. Right? I know, it's like all of us are like, it's just games.
I'm gonna go sign my grandson.
Yeah, exactly. You got to. You totally have to, because it's a way to go to college on a scholarship. And here's what's wild. It's exploding so fast that tell me your name. Jenny. If Jenny's awesome at Call of Duty and she comes and she plays for UK and she's absolutely the best at that, and you know she's done this, Jenny can go be a coach at this university that's getting ready to start it up and be paid as a coach to do it, and she's so good at that she's going to go to a D1 school like within about 3 years, because there's nobody doing it. It's not filled up yet. But that's how you can take that. And I tell you to go research that a little further of what the actual opportunity is. KHSAA just made video gaming a sport. So there's a state championship in video gaming and so forth. So you see what I'm saying though is that's important to him, and he did it for this reason. It didn't quite translate to me, until you said that, and then you told me about Jordan. And Jordan's got a scholarship, and Jordan's going to go do this, and he can bring that type of business back to Paducah, right? Okay, give me another one. Give me another story.
We had a tornado collide with COVID.
Yeah.
So people who were already displaced from their home, but were working from home.
Yeah.
Because of COVID.
Interesting.
Found what they needed at the library.
That's so good.
Computers and, just
Yeah.
really a place to get out of a hotel room for the day. And so we had a lot of that.
That's awesome. And I mean, not, let me temper what I just said. That's a great story. Give me the names of Clark and Sarah Graves and, Joe and such and such, and just tell me about what happened with them. And you got me. And that's why you say, that's why we have to have meeting space. We don't know when there's going to be a tornado or, this, that. That's why we have this, and we use it in this way, so forth and so on. I love what you said about attorneys meeting there and doctors and things like that. Like, I had not really thought about that space being used in that way.
Truck drivers, semi-truck drivers.
Yeah.
that come in, and sometimes they use the computer, but we'll fax, and there's not, I mean, they pay for it.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of places.
The fax.
And you see these guys, and they come in their shorts and, you know, whatever, and somebody's emailed them and said, you have to have this piece of paper right now. And when I was doing those surveys, more than one said, oh, we are so grateful you have this, because we know we can come here, this is a great library. So I think they're passing the information along somewhere along the way.
Yeah, that came up yesterday. Logan County mentioned that they're one of the few places that can fax these days. Okay.
The truck stop in Calvert City has told people, because we've had them come in and say, they told me over at Love's that you all faxed more than once. So I think that's a big thing.
Yeah. Now, again, why should I care? They're doing that. Well, it's because now this happens for our community. This becomes a place where we are. Let me tell you about Frank, the truck driver that came in, and we helped him stay on the road, or helped him make sure he got his mortgage paid, or whatever. Make it personal. Always make it personal. And this is the progression. This is important to me. Well, why should I care? And then get it personal.
Well, I know a couple of them, like, if they didn't get that paper right then,
Yeah.
they couldn't deliver. Well, that hurts.
That supply chain, yeah.
Ready to deliver.
Yeah. So, you know, plot twist, the library is all about supply chain. What? Wait, what? Let me tell you a story. We are one of the few places that fax in the county. Nobody else faxes anymore. You all as a government, people can't really walk into the government building and fax. Yeah, you can fax, but guess what? At Calvert City, the truck drivers all know that they can come in and do this. If they can't fax this, they can't run. That is a supply chain issue that affects our businesses. Now you got a story. Plot twist. Compelling. See? It's pretty cool. You all have amazing things that you're very proud of, and you should be, but you got to set the context for them to care. It's got to be in their language, in their context, but then go that extra step and make it personal. Make it about somebody. And if it can be somebody that's related to me, you know, Jay, just like your cousin, Ross. Ross was in here that day, and now I care. Now I really care. Let me tell you a story, and then I'm going to give you this track to run on. Monday, I'm in Richmond, and I'm doing this, and it's the first time that we had done it, and we got to this portion of the show, and I'm having everybody do this, and it hit me. I have a story for you. Yeah, my mom was a librarian, retired librarian, and I had that connection. Yeah, I'm a recovering politician, and that's part of the reason why I get to do this, is to help you crawl around in my head a little bit. But the public library means a lot more to me than you actually realize. See, I graduated from the University of Kentucky in 1991 with a degree in art. Yeah, gives you a license to do nothing or everything, depending on how you spend it. And then I was the mascot, as Shannon said, from 88 to 91. But in 91, we were in a recession, and so artists/mascots living in Lexington don't have a lot of job opportunities, okay? So I went into the financial service business, climbed a ladder of success, and in 2000 I was working for this niche financial service company in Lexington. I was the marketing government affairs guy, and I was making really good money. They were making great money. I was being put on a corporate jet, zipping around the country, pitching big deals, and on Monday, May 15th, which was yesterday, this hit me this week that, oh my gosh, this is the week. Monday, May 15th of 2000, I had arrived, you all, professionally. My boss and I were brokering a $1 billion deal with the third largest bank in the world, this bank out of France. And we were doing that deal at lunch at the White House that day. I don't care who you are, that's a good day. That's a good day. Well, we did the deal. I was 31 at the time. I'm 2-3 weeks away from being a multimillionaire. That was Monday. Friday of the exact same week, the company I worked for was raided by 80 federal agents. Yeah. White House to outhouse in 5 days. I didn't have a thing to do with it, but wow. And I'm Mr. Soft Skills guy, right? Like I don't have any hard skills. I'm not an engineer. I can't just walk across the street and get another job. So it was terrifying. FBI's listening to phone conversations. I'm being subpoenaed for grand jury hearings, and I'm terrified, right? I didn't do anything wrong, but they don't let you know that. Let me just tell you, the government doesn't let you know that. So I had this crazy idea of, a business. I didn't know how to run a business or do any of that, but I could go speak on this generational thing. I just had this sort of, maybe I could do that. But I didn't know where to start. I didn't have any money. I was living in a 2-bedroom house with my wife and a newborn. And and I didn't really even have a computer at the time because everything was done through the company I worked for. So I started this out of the public library. I went to the Lexington Public Library and I thought, you know what? It's free internet, free resources. I've got branch offices all over town with free parking. I can go anywhere. And I held my meetings there. I did this business, and it didn't even dawn on me until Monday that this business started. So in Lexington, our city runs on a payroll tax. And so therefore, we don't really have a lot of money to run our city unless you have jobs inside Fayette County. I have been running this business for a while, and all the tax revenue that I've generated for the city of Lexington and all the things I've bought and so forth, for the last 20, however many years now, all started at the public library. So thanks. You just don't know who. Sometimes you all get really excited about stats. And what I want to tell you is try and turn those stats into people every chance you get. Because the stat may not resonate as much as the personal story. Sometimes you don't have a bajillion people. You have that one young gal. But that one young gal's story is bigger than having a bajillion people. Okay? All right, let me teach you the last thing and then we'll call it a day for now. So how can you replicate success in telling a story? How can you construct a story so that you can do it every single time successfully? There's a tool that is called the hammock. And here's what I want you to do. Will you take a blank sheet of paper and I want you to draw this with me. Okay? So this post is a little smaller than that post. That's the hammock. Okay. If this post represents when you start your presentation, your pitch, your meeting, telling your story, if this represents when you take the stage, so to speak, what would you say your audience's attention span is on 1 to 100 when you start? Either it's an individual or a group, doesn't matter. 1 to 100, what would you say their attention span is?
80.
Okay, yeah, you're dead on. It's 70+%. You got their attention, okay? So that means that when you take the stage, when you start, who said it at the very beginning of you got to catch them at the very beginning, you got to pull them in, right? That you got to have what is called a hot opener. You got to open hot. It's got to be about them. So if it's a Boomer County judge and you're just having this conversation, you want to punch them in the face with, the reason I'm here is I want to help secure your legacy. You've done so much for this community. That's what the library wants to do. Pow! It's about them, okay? All right. You got their attention. Use it, okay? Don't waste it. You will know from now on. You'll go to some meeting and they'll get somebody behind the podium and they'll do something like this. Is this mic on? Can you hear me? Yeah. Well, I tell you what, it's really cold in here. And what about that weather? Tell you what, it's Mark Pope. I don't know what's going to happen there. It is so maddening when you realize you just lost your opportunity. You all have to take it. You got to punch them in the face, right? So if I'm teaching you, Justin, how to take that stat, how that video game piece becomes a story, it would be something to the effect of this number, some big number, and it would all be about the economic value of video gaming today, right? And then you'd whittle it back down to Jordan and what he's doing at the library and so forth, right? Like, that's opening hot. That's about them. Okay. At the very end, when you finish a presentation, a speech, telling your story, on a scale of 1 to 100, what would you say your audience's attention is? At the very, very end. Take a guess. Nobody wants to guess. I will tell you then. It's actually 100%. Why? Because you have said something like, in conclusion, in summary, and they woke back up, okay? So they're paying attention, so you got to close hot about them. And the most important thing is you've got to give them a logical next step to do. You got to give them something to do. Even if they don't do it, it doesn't matter. You've got to give them something to do, to think about, to consider, okay? Now, why is this? This is based in brain science. It's not Jay's opinion, okay? Here's what's happening with your brain. The backside of your brain, the stem of your brain, the fight or flight piece, the survival piece of your brain, actually has the optic nerve hooked to it, meaning the backside of your eyes are hooked to the survival piece of your brain, and that nerve is causing your eyes to look around all day long for trouble. It's trying to keep you alive. It doesn't want you to die. And as crazy as this sounds, when Shannon takes the stage, biologically speaking, my brain goes, she's going to kill me. I got my dukes up. I'm ready. She's going to say something that could hurt me, harm me. It's paying attention because it doesn't know if what's being said or done is going to hurt or harm. When it realizes Shannon isn't going to hurt me, it goes into the hammock. It goes to sleep. It rests. It recognizes Jay is safe. When Shannon says, in summary, it wakes back up because she may drop the other shoe right now. Okay, what's coming? You don't want to squander the opportunity when the brain is paying attention. So you have to say things that will lodge in the brain that they'll remember, things that matter to them, okay? So you want to open hot, you want to close hot. But wait a minute, the meat of your talk is here, and the brain goes down to 20%. It's not paying attention at all. It's sleeping. It's in the hammock. Well, what do? What you do is you turn that hammock. Oh, that guy just died right there on the spot. That was terrible. What you do is you want to create points of interest that pull people out of the hammock at a strategic moment to remember something. These are just simply called grabbers because they grab your attention out of the hammock. Now, here's what you need to understand. When you present, you speak, whether you run a meeting, this is what the brain is going to do. It's going to pay attention at the beginning because it doesn't know if there's danger or not. When it realizes it's not in danger, it will go to sleep. It will go in the hammock. It rests. No one is good enough to keep an audience at 100% the whole time. That's not what happens. So you have to let it rest, and then you need to pull it up when you want to make a point. And then let it rest, and then pull it up when you want to make another point. These should be done creatively. These should be done in ways that cause people to remember them, okay? So I don't have time to teach you all of these grabbers. They're categories of creativity, but I've done a number of them to you today. So for example, personal story. Having a personal story, that's why I always say take your numbers and turn them personal, because that is a grabber. It pulls someone up and they remember that story. Jordan, daggone, whoever Jordan is, he is doing great in college right now. Jordan, started playing video games at the library, and now he's running a video game company here in Paducah, okay? That won't be forgotten. You're not going to forget my story, the fact that I started this business in the public library. That is there's something about that, okay? I did that here towards the end. I pulled you out of the hammock. Another device is a metaphorical story, using a metaphor to tell the story. So like when I was describing COVID, I said same storm, different boats. Same storm, different boats, what does that have to do with COVID? Other than the fact it's just a metaphor for how people went through it. So metaphorical stories cause people to pay attention. There's a device called a word play, which is where C minus C equals C is. When I put that up and I said, you need to force me to abide by this, your brain was going, I have no idea what he's talking about. It became interesting, okay? Your brain's paying attention, like, what is that? And when I solved the problem for you, content minus context equals total confusion, your brain actually dumped the trust chemical and you trusted me just a little bit longer because I solved a problem for you. That was just a device. That was just a creative device of C minus C equals C, okay? A number play is another grabber category. You saw that when I did the 8, 12, and 9, where 9 was the goldfish, right? Number play is no more than 3 numbers that makes a point. I was just making the point there that we got short attention spans. I could have said that, but you might have forgotten it. But that goldfish and that 8, 12, and 9 might have let it stick a little bit better. Don't get hung up in all of that. Don't let that blow you out of the water. The point simply is that if you use this as your track to run on, you'll never miss it. You will always be able to workshop out an amazing story. Here's the one piece that you got to do first is you got to write down how much time are they giving you at the beginning. So if they say, hey, you've got 15 minutes to make this pitch or presentation, hey, you've got 5 minutes, hey, you've got 30, 60, whatever that is, write that down here. So 30 minutes or 15 minutes or 60. And if I'm coaching you up, what I'm going to teach you to do is I'm going to teach you to make it for slightly less than the time they give you. Because invariably something's going to go wrong. Somebody's going to talk a long time that leads up to you, or somebody didn't make it, they're still in the bathroom and you got to wait. If you have a 30-minute presentation and you've built it for 30 minutes on the dot, you got no room for error. If you built it for 22 minutes, I'm good. I'm not in a rush. So here's how you do it. You literally, every time you want to tell a great story, you throw the hammock up. You first write down how much time they're giving you, because you got to know what you're working with. You write down, what am I going to say at the beginning? What is it that I'm going to lead with, and why am I leading that? Why should they care about that? All right? And then you're going to say, what is it I'm going to do at the end, and why should they care? What's that next step I'm going to give them? And then what are the key points or point I want to make in the middle? And why should they care? Does that make sense? If I ask you to go out here and run a mile, but I gave you no instruction on how to do it, you might run a mile. You might run a mile and a quarter. You might run 3/4 of a mile. You might go down and get lost down a street and have to turn around. But if I say, go run a mile on that track, you know exactly where you are every minute of that mile. It's 4 laps. That's all I got to do. I know I'm on lap 2. I'm halfway done. This is the track to run on when you want to tell a story. You can put it on a napkin or a whiteboard. But when you get ready to do your annual meeting, when you get ready to do an annual tax presentation, you're going to roll that out. And Shannon has all of 2 minutes, but she needs to do this as well. 2 minutes. I got to go in 2 minutes. I need a hot opener and a hot close and maybe 1 point in the middle. And that's all she's got time for. But you may have 15 minutes or 20 minutes. But you got to give them a next step, something to do. I remember we were at a council meeting and we give 15 minutes for presentations, and this African Cemetery No. 2 group came and presented. African Cemetery No. 2 in Lexington is a historically black cemetery, downtown Lexington. They presented for 15 minutes about its history, about its current condition. I didn't know what to do. They didn't tell me what to do. Did they want me to put in committee? Did they need money? They just left it. I still don't know. That was years ago. It's still hanging out there. It bugs me all the time. You have to tell me what you want me to do next. Give me the next thing to do, even if it's just, I want you to think about this. So I gave you the next thing to do, which was write down those 6 people that you're going to meet with next, your next 6 appointments today. Write that down. Do a who, what, how on that. Get some muscle memory. That's what you do. If you don't do it, that's on you. I told you what the next thing to do is, okay? All right. Shannon's going to send you the notes. At the end of the notes is this 1-pager. Whoops. The times we're in, is a storm made up of these 3 things. The biggest obstacle that you face is translation. You talk a different language than they do. So you've got to translate your stuff into their language, okay? Because translation matters. It's hard to read someone else's language. It's too much work. So when you're trying to navigate this time, you've got 3 questions that help you figure out how to aim your audience. Who, what, how. Then you say, what is my message? Why should they care? And then you make it personal. You use the hammock to structureize it, to drop it into a flow, okay? And then you give them a next step to do. At the end of your notes, though, there's this sheet. It is the 10 steps you do in order, okay? So you never get off the track. So when you want to tell a great story, you start, who's my audience? I got to know who I'm aiming for. What's important to them? I got to know what matters to them. How do I want them to feel when I walk out the door? What's that feeling I want them to leave with? Next, what are my most important points? What do I want to make sure they know? And why are these so important to me? Why do I care? What numbers are you using? These 4 and 5 may be the same thing, or they may be separate. That's why I separated them out. But what numbers are you using? So Shannon used 2,017,000, whatever the number was, $250,000 worth of whatevers. So why is that so important? She knows the answer to that. Whose face, though, can I put on those numbers and to make it more human? What is my hot opener? What am I going to say that punches them in the face, that causes them to go, wow, this is about me? What is it I'm going to say at the end to say, wow, I remember the library in such a favorable way? And what are the key points of this story? And how do I communicate them in a way that is memorable? And then what's the action step I give them at the end? You all use those 10 steps in that order, and you will tell an amazing story every single time, okay? You won't be off the track. You don't have to wing it anymore. All right, here's the deal, real quick. If I get hit by the meteor on the way home today from this meeting, and this is it, we never get a chance to hang out again after this, I'm going to start with you so I don't catch you off guard. But I just want to ask you, what's something of value today? Something that you walked away going, that was pretty good. I hadn't really thought about that way. Or I hadn't heard it that way. Just give me something that you walk out of here that was valuable to you.
Just using the story part of it, like we keep statistics, numbers, everything all day long, but we don't always make it to that last part to make it where it's more personal.
Okay, great, fantastic. What about you?
Probably like the words for each generation.
Yeah.
It's helpful to know.
Yeah, don't be afraid to use them. Nobody outside of folks that I've taught knows those words. You didn't pick them up when I started this. So the point is, they're going to connect to those words, and it's just sort of like your little secret handshake.
I'm going to speak at kindergarten graduation tomorrow, so I'm going to make sure I start with that hot open.
Yeah, buddy. That's right. And what matters to that audience? I love it. I love it. It warms my heart when somebody says, I'm going to do this for something personal versus professional. All right. What about you?
I would say the generational stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's going to help me to understand the other generations and how to work and deal with it.
Yeah, especially internally, you all, because libraries have all these generations. You all truly work womb to tomb. I mean, you have Gen Alpha as patrons and so forth, but they're just not in the workspace. But you've got every generation smashing around you, so that's good. What about you?
I would say the mind of the politician. Like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an alien mind. It's okay. You just have to understand it's an alien mind, right?
I think the generational word.
Okay, awesome.
I hate to say the same thing.
No.
Because we talk about it at work, how we're all so different and
Yeah.
why. And little things we'll say to each other that maybe we probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So be
And-
in tune to it.
It's two sides of the same coin. It is massively frustrating. 5 generations is massively frustrating. Flip side is, if you kind of know how to navigate it, you become really, really relevant. And it can be really fun once you figured it, crack the code. What about you?
You said, people say make it personal, but you
Yeah.
gave examples, specific examples, just like the video game.
Yeah.
On how to make it personal and how to,
Yep.
tell the story of Jordan or who.
Yeah, yeah. We'll never forget Jordan, bye guys. I love it. Thank you. What about you?
I'd probably say the structure of the hammock, because when I get passionate about stuff, I tend to ramble on a lot.
Yeah, we all do.
Structure things
Yep.
that grab the attention instead of just spouting on my
Yeah, and you know where you are on the track as you're talking. So if you realize, oh gosh, I'm running out of time, I can either take this out, or I know where I am versus, like you say, I got to tell you this whole thing. No. What about you?
Thinking like Nick was, like that if you want to grab your
Yeah, exactly. In summary, but don't be like the pastor that says it like 8 times. Eventually you're crying wolf. What about you?
I liked the connection versus perfection, because I know personally for me, like, I'm always worried about like how someone's gonna perceive me, or like I'm wanting to like say all the things that I've like done, but
Yeah.
those people don't really care. Like, they want to know that you are like connecting with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a way I hadn't really thought about it
Good.
before.
And it should take a lot of pressure off of you.
Yeah.
It should. Yeah.
The generational words, like, that's just like, you just gave us a key.
Yeah. It's a Swiss Army knife, man. I love it. Yeah. And it's what's really funny is that we all have the secret handshake now, right? And so if you were Gen X, I'd be sending you emails like, hey, this email is next level stuff right here, and you all can talk that way, but people on the outside don't know, and you can really use it to connect. So that's right. Justin, what about you?
I feel like the Jordan example was a great way to get something to the finish line in terms of communication.
Yeah.
Like, talking about saving money for that mom. Okay, that's good. I've hit the ball.
Yeah.
But take it one step further to now Jordan is going to be an esports player. I've now gone from fly ball to home run.
Yeah.
Like, I extended that just a little bit further.
Yeah, and let's take that metaphor and use it a little bit further. You may have just hit a ball all the way and you think it's a home run because you've done this, that, and the other, and they catch it at the fence. And you're like, what you just described is getting it over the fence. That one little bit of, wow, yeah, there's that economic piece. And the what if we could get a whole generation of kids to come back to Paducah and we became an esports hub and those kinds of jobs, and we kept the brain drain from happening here, blah, blah, blah. Like casting that kind of vision off of one little stat, and then you expand it out but make it super personal. Yeah. Pam, what about you?
Know your audience.
Yeah.
I think I've heard people speak before and you wonder, who are they talking to?
Who came in? Yeah. Yeah, and really being intentional about who's sitting in front of you so that you can make that connection. Yeah. What about you?
I think it is, when we take our grocery list of what we do well, that everything, regardless whether we're talking physical, we think about why it's important and then use it.
Yeah.
But you stop and think.
Yeah. Why would they care so much about this? I care a lot about this, but why should they care? And it's just that little ever so slight tweak, and then you make it personal, and now it's a compelling story versus a stat that may have just gotten lost, or I just didn't know what 250 some thousand meant. Right. Shannon, what about you? You've heard it now twice in 2 days, so.
Yesterday I said that understanding the translation. Today I want to talk a little bit more about the hammock and personalizing those stats.
Yeah. Jess, what about you?
I think mine is more just the communication pieces, to be able to talk to the various people we have to interact with on a daily basis, whether it's the patrons,
Yep.
whether it's, physical court, or it's our board.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I see all kinds of ways to fit all of this together.
Yeah, and that warms my heart because what I didn't say is how many different constituencies you really serve and how many different audiences you're talking to at any one time. This at least gives you some tools that allow you to focus instead of, oh shoot, I forgot that I was talking to these guys and they don't really give a rip about that. These guys really do. And so it's kind of like a rock show where you're like, good night, Cleveland. I mean, Phoenix. Like you forget where you are. Yeah. So, what about you?
Definitely making it personal, because I'm always, statistics.
Yeah.
The numbers, and I need to bring it down and.
Yeah. Make it about Jordan, by gosh. We've created this amazing persona, right? And one thing that we've done today that I haven't said this before all week, but I would leave you with this because it is kind of funny that we're using this Jordan, whatever. A lot of times, as you all prepare for things, I would challenge you that as you start to create your stories in this, that they all take a name. So Jordan has become our video game guy. Like, there may not be in Paducah a Jordan, right? But what you're trying to do is create a name that has this persona to it that you want to replicate lots of that. So I always talk about Sallies because in my business, Sallies are people who are generally responsible for a meeting or a group. They need a speaker for some period of time because they've been charged with this event or this team, and they need to look good. They need to bring in a speaker that can bring good quality content but also is entertaining. I look for Sallies to hire me. That's who I look for. And there are two other personas that buy from me, but Sally is always the first one that buys from me. Put a name to it so that you and your staff can start to say, that's a Jordan. That's a Jordan conversation. So even if there's not a real person, you can kind of personalize it. It's in when you talk amongst yourselves. Okay, so here's the deal. We went a little bit longer, but I'm so glad you all came today. And I'm so glad we recorded this today here and did it well and so forth. So thank you for making that happen. I'll hang around and answer any questions, but if I don't get a chance to see you guys, I want you to understand the bat phone is open, okay? I may not have all the answers to it. I'm just a happy neutral. Sometimes I'm like Switzerland. I'm somebody that's for you, but who might have an insight in this, or we may just struggle along together. You can just have a rage room with me, and you can take it out on me. That's totally fine. But the point simply is KPLA just said, hey, here's somebody that at least understands us at a different level. And I totally skipped you. Oh my gosh, I didn't even ask you what you got out of this. I stopped before I got to you. I apologize. I know. It dawned on me. I was like, wait. I got one more. Tell me what was good for you today.
I think probably the generational thing in communicating with like the magistrates, because our judge executive is around my age, and then we have some younger magistrates that's come on this past year that are like in their 20s.
Yeah.
So it's hard to communicate because he feels what I feel.
Yeah.
Like some of these younger people that probably were not library users during that time.
Yeah. Yeah. And now at least you've got a word that can connect you. It's a starting point. Yeah.
Try to reel them on in.
Excellent. I saved the best for last, by gosh. So, yeah. But in all seriousness, one of the things that we wanted to make sure of was that if there was something that you needed to talk about, there was somebody that could talk to you about that, okay? What I love about KPLA and the leadership that's happening right now is they are moving ever so rapidly into leadership and professional development of library professionals. What can we do to give you skills that nobody had taught you before? Nobody taught you this stuff in school. How do you deal with elected officials? My gosh, no. How do you communicate with how do you build an 8-second communication line and so forth, along with a number of other things. So what these guys are doing, they're moving in that direction. I just get to be a part of that, and I'm really appreciative. So if I don't get a chance to ever see you again past today, I want to wish you all the true success in the world. I'll hang out for as long as you want, but thanks for giving me a lot more than 8 seconds of your time. I'm done. Have a great day.